So you were lied to, misled, and mistreated by the industrial food complex, and it destroyed your health. And now you're looking at a way to get back at them. In this video, I'm going to show you how and why the carnivore diet is the most effective strategy to do just that, and how following this lifestyle hits them exactly where it hurts. So if you're following a carnivore diet, or you have your dog on a carnivore diet, I just want to let you know that you are actively making a difference in this realm. And there's more and more attention being brought to this. On Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, there was essentially a Senate hearing, and this was held in Washington, D.C.
Children prefer this over this, just as they would prefer cocaine over sugar. That doesn't make it okay.
But I think...
And the fact that our food, the industrial food complex, hyper-processed food, big industry food, pretty much all the food that's made in factories and laboratories and that is designed to hook you and make you addicted to it, is now getting mainstream attention for the fact that it is actively poisoning us. They can't hide this anymore.
Children today are about 20% more likely to develop type 1 diabetes than they were 20 years ago. Childhood cancer rates are rising a percentage point every year. Asthma is up, so is ADHD, allergies, virtually every type of psychological disorder.
This food is so toxic, and the negative health impacts are so severe that it is now getting basically government attention across the United States. This was a congressional Senate hearing with some of the leading experts in the health, food, and nutrition space. And this is 100% vindication for the people that have been saying that all along. People like me, people like you, people that have been following the carnivore diet and have seen their health improve with that, and are basically calling out the fact that modern food is toxic. And in a lot of spaces, we're laughed at and we're mocked, and we're told that a carnivore diet isn't healthy, and the food pyramid is the way to go, and these hyper-processed foods aren't bad, and the dosage makes the poison, and as long as it fits your macros, you can eat in moderation, and all these things. But now we're finding out things that we've known all along, that this food actually is toxic, and it is having detrimental impacts on our health.
We have poisoned our food supply, engineered highly addictive chemicals that we put into our food. We spray it with pesticides that kill pests. What do you think they do to our gut lining and our microbiome? And then they come in sick. The GI tract is reacting. It's not an acute inflammatory storm. It's a low-grade chronic inflammation.
So I'm going to dig into this in a lot of different videos, but in this video specifically, I want to cover the fact that whether you know it or not, and whether you want to believe it or not, one person can make a difference. Because when you have a whole bunch of one persons, they all add up to an unstoppable force. And that force is strong enough to drive positive change in any direction we want it to go.
Having studied all these public companies and knowing that a significant part of how we got here is actually from these public companies, what I can tell you is that they're all relatively low growth rate companies, but they have grown their earnings every single year, pretty much. And because they're low growth rate companies, they react extremely quickly to when their earnings start to decline. This is just one way of saying that you as consumers have a lot more power than you realize. Most of what we talked about today were top-down solutions of how we can work with government to help. But the fastest way to help is if consumers start boycotting with their wallet. I say this without exaggeration, that if any one of these public companies mentioned today, or any of the large companies that you know of, the big food companies, if they had just a 5% drop, just 5 in sales, if you had all of you here, or hopefully there's some very, very, very large influencers listening, or celebrities, if any one of those people came out and said, do not buy U.S. Kellogg's cereal until they put in the same ingredients that they sell abroad, and that caused sales to decline by 5%, just 5, in 1 quarter, they would change this overnight.
All right, so let's think about what Mr. Karp has just said here. So a market shift as small as 5% is enough to drive an overnight change for these big industries. So let's consider for a second that there are roughly 324 million people in the United States right now. 5% of that is a little over 16 million people, which is not that many people. There's some health and fitness influencers that I follow that have millions of followers by themselves. So 16 million people is not that many people. And let's think about for a second how many people are on a carnivore diet. I don't know if there's millions at this point, but there are definitely hundreds of thousands of people following this lifestyle that are seeing drastic improvements with their health. And I would even venture to say it's probably the people that are just following whole food diets. If you're eating whole food and you're not buying as much food from big industry, you're not buying hyper processed food and all the food that is essentially toxic, then you are actively making a difference. So first of all, and the obvious thing is that you're not buying hyper processed garbage. So hyper-processed garbage comes from these big industries, the industries that are poisoning us, the ones we want to avoid. And when you don't buy their stuff, that's not money in their pockets. You're also not buying from the mega corporations that produce these foods. And by doing that, you're also not contributing to their scientists, their laboratories, their engineers that create this hyper-palatable food. There is less money going into their pocket, thus they have less money for advertising, they have less money to pay their scientists, they have less money to do all the things that they're doing that destroy our health. You're also not contributing to monoculture and the majority of the big ag industry, which are mostly chemical companies that create the seed, the antibiologics, the pesticides, the herbicides, the GMOs. We're talking Bayer Monsanto. We're talking chemical companies that created Agent Orange during wars. We're talking chemical companies that created biological warfare. And these are the people making the GMO foods, the pesticides, the herbicides, and essentially control most of the big agricultural industry because they control the seeds. They control what the farmers plant. And on top of that, by doing the exact opposite of what we've been told our entire lives and doing the opposite of what we're told is healthy and experiencing profoundly positive health benefits because of that, we are actively exposing the corruption, bias, and the lies that come from the big food industry. By doing that, we are essentially leading by example. And people see that. Even if you're not going online and voicing your opinion about these things, if you're not actively talking about them, if you're not showcasing your results, people around you see this. And they want to know how you got the results you got. And just by doing that, just by being present, you are showcasing a lifestyle that is much healthier than the alternative. And that brings me to my next point. Spreading the message, building a tribe, building a community, letting people know the things that you found out, the lies you've uncovered, and the health benefits you've experienced from shifting your diet and shifting your lifestyle away from big industry and to the foods that actually nourish and heal you, to the foods that aren't toxic. Everyone has a platform to do this. And you don't have to go online, you don't have to make videos, and you don't have to go out in public and shriek into a megaphone for people to hear you. You can do this within your community. You can do this with your family, your friends, people that are around you at work. It can be something just as subtle as mentioning like, man, when I stopped eating this and I replaced it with this, here's what happened. There are many, many ways to spread this message without making it seem like a religious ideology. And it shouldn't be that. It should be something that you want to follow, something you enjoy, because it improves your health and makes you the best person you could possibly be. And when all these things are combined and more people catch on, that means more and more business is pulled away from these industries, these horrible, horrible industries that do not have our best interest in mind. And if you go and watch this hearing, which I strongly recommend that everybody does, as a matter of fact, I think this should be required learning for pretty much every US citizen, you're going to find that the amount of corruption and deception behind these industries is almost unfathomable. They're exploiting us for profit and greed. They do not have your best interest in mind. They could care less about you or your family. They only want you for your money. And you're also going to find that there are, in fact, more people catching on. And a lot of these ideas, including the carnivore diet, are now getting mainstream attention, which is an amazing thing. I've been carnivore for 5.5 years now, and this diet and this lifestyle literally saved my life and transformed me to the most optimal version of myself that I can be. And I know for a fact, because I've worked with dozens of them, that there are many, many people out there that have had this same exact experience. I'm not an outlier, I'm not alone, and there are people in this hearing that can attest to that.
I'd never be where I am today without this diet. I truly believed I would have died. I'm not suggesting the average person does this extreme version of a ketogenic diet. I am specifically suggesting that this diet is researched as a potential treatment for autoimmunity and psychiatric disorders with the goal of eventually healing the gut and reintroducing more healthy, whole foods, and that the ideological war on meat needs to end. I've seen tens of thousands of people see complete remission in as little as 6 weeks. Most drugs don't work that fast, and no drug fixes the root cause.
And these people, these industries, and the institutions that own and control them, they understand that. And they know that if this catches on, it's going to mean really bad things for their bottom line, and that scares the absolute crap out of them, which is why there continue to still be campaigns against red meat, against these healing, nutritious foods that we've been eating since the dawn of time. But hearings like this are such an amazing thing because you have very reputable, very trusted people in authoritative positions that are touting the benefits of these lifestyles, that are calling out these industries for actively, knowingly, and intentionally poisoning the general population. And this helps spread awareness. This helps people trust that the information being put out there about the detrimental impacts of these foods is not pseudoscience. It is a real thing, and it is really happening. And the mystery of why our health is in such dire straits should not be a mystery at all. And the answer is right under our noses and has been all along. While all this is very, very positive, and we should all be extremely excited and very proud for driving the change that we have, there is a chance and a very real possibility that by simply going carnivore, it may not be enough. And the reason I say that is because if you switch to a carnivore diet, or you switch to a real whole foods diet, and you're not buying hyper-processed garbage anymore, but you're still buying from big retail, you're still buying a lot of commercially raised beef, or you're still buying a lot of processed meats, or a lot of canned goods, or a lot of food from big industry in general, then you may still be contributing, even unknowingly, to big ag and to big industry, to feedlots, to corporate-owned farms, to foreign beef. Now, I get it. You can only do the best you can do. And not everybody has access to local farms, local businesses. Not everybody can afford that meat because in some places it's a little more expensive. And again, you are actively making a difference just by following a carnivore diet. Just by being healthy and not eating this garbage, you're making a difference. But if you have the ability to, I would encourage everyone, as often as possible, to source your meat, to source your animal products and your food from local communities, local businesses, and local farms. That is going to remove you 100% from the industrial food complex, from big ag, and you will not in any way be contributing to, supporting, or funding these industries. And this is something that is not considered or talked about enough, but I think it is very, very important. And if we want to drive real positive change in the best way possible to support our neighbors, our community, and our local economy, this is the way we do it. Because even though eating meat from big industry is 1,000 times better and healthier than eating hyper-processed garbage, some of those industries can still be just as bad as the industries and companies that create hyper-processed garbage. And in some cases, they're owned by the same companies. Because what you'll see is some of these very large corporations have a lot of sub-companies under them. I call them sister companies, you can call them brands, but it's essentially the same company. It's important to know who the brands are under these mega corporations so you know which ones to avoid. So become educated on this topic, know who they are, know who to avoid, and support your local farms, businesses, ranchers, and producers as often as possible. And if you're looking for ways to do that, and you're searching for local resources in your area, there is a section on my website specifically dedicated to just that. I created a directory, a map that has over 7,200 local farms, butcher shops, and producers all over the United States. Please use that, search your area, and you should be able to find local producers that will provide you with high quality animal products that are not from big industry. And you'll find a link to this resource in the description below. So continue this healthy lifestyle. Continue to spread the message, and let's drive positive, meaningful, impactful, and lasting change.